The Blue Jays have started the season off on a tear with a 17-9 record after going 1-3 in their first 4 games. Through 26 games, this is their best start to a season ever. This also comes at a time where expectations are at an all-time high, from Vlad and Bo entering their 5th seasons and no playoff wins to show for it, and Rogers spending the most money they ever have before, even passing the luxury tax threshold for the first time in club history. It's still early, and we're seeing teams like the Pirates and Rangers exceed expectations with 2 of the best records in the league. But let me tell you exactly why people around the MLB should be buying into the early success of the 2023 Toronto Blue Jays. First off, let's go over their bats. And like years past, the Jays 1 through 9 look solid top to bottom. Except this year, it is far more well-rounded with the additions of Kiermaier, Belt, and Varsho. With these 3 new guys, the Jays can consistently roll out with 3 lefties in the lineup, much different from what we've been seeing in the past few years. But what makes this lineup so scary is how dominant the top 3 performers have been, this being Vlad, Chapman, and Bo Bichette. These guys are outperforming everybody in the American League. Vlad is looking like his normal self again with a .324 average and a .921 OPS. But what catches my eye most is his 11 walks compared to only 13 strikeouts. That ratio puts Vlad amongst the elite in the MLB. This tells us that Vlad is picking up the ball great early on and being much more selective at the dish, a combination we saw him do well with in 2021 where he finished 2nd in MVP voting. Moving on to Bo Bichette, who has picked up right where he left off from last season with a .327 average and no surprise leading the league in hits. If he is able to finish the season top in this category, it will be his 3rd straight season leading the league, and there's all the evidence to back up this claim that he can do it. Last year, Bo went from ranking in the 14th percentile for chase rate all the way up to 22 this season. Now I know you're thinking, that's still pretty terrible, and you're right, it's not the greatest. But this small improvement has helped Bo go from a 22.2% strikeout rate all the way down to a 14.2. This is a major improvement. That puts Bo in the 89th percentile in strikeout percentage compared to last year when he was only in the 42nd. Less strikeouts equals more batted balls, which also equals more hits. And what would be a video with Bo Bichette without talking about his most impressive ability, which is to hit the ball to right field. If you take a look at his hit chart for this season, you can see that the majority of his hits are to the right side of second base, putting Bo in a prime spot to take advantage of the new short porch and right. And seeing how the Jays have already played 20% of their away games, it's safe to say Bo will have a lot more time to exploit it later on in the season. And lastly, we have Matt Chapman, who is crushing it in every major offensive category, leading the league in average, OBP, OPS, OPS plus, and total bases, all the while accumulating 1.8 WAR in only 24 games played. That's on pace for 12.15 for a 162 game season. Yes, I know he will ultimately regress, but this dominant stretch from Chapman has undoubtedly been the biggest catalyst in the Jays' offensive success early on. And what makes this tear so special is that it may not just be a hot month for Chapman, meaning at the end of the season we could see a stat line even higher than his best days in Oakland due to this one change in his game, that being elite power to right field. Yes, he too took a page out of Bo's book. In an article posted by David Adler, he found that Chapman already has accumulated 9 extra base hits to the opposite field throughout his first 21 games of the season, almost matching his 2021 and 2022 totals in about 300 less games. Another reason to back Chapman for the rest of the season is the fact that he would have had 3 extra home runs in 2022 if the Jays' renovations were last year, and that's without this newfound power stroke to right field, meaning he too is a massive candidate to take advantage of the short porch and right. These 3 guys have accumulated for 49 of the 118 runs batted in and 15 of the 30 home runs hit, meaning they've really done it all for the Jays and the other guys aren't producing as much. But that's what makes this lineup so scary, because it's true, a lot of these guys have not started off the season well. George Springer, Brandon Belt, and Dalton Varsho to name a few. Once these guys get going, and they most definitely will, then the Jays have the making of the #1 lineup in baseball for the 3rd year running. Not bad considering the team parted ways with offensive weapons in Teoscar Hernandez and Lourdes Gurriel Jr., who quietly had a .291 average and 32 doubles in only 121 games last season. Moving on, the Jays pitching staff had an okay first couple weeks of the season, but over the past 14 days they've picked up tremendously, especially the starting pitching, who have been lights out since April 18th, pitching to a .97 ERA in these 10 starts across 64 and a third innings pitched. During this stretch, the worst start was from Alek Manoah against the Seattle Mariners when he went 5 innings allowing 2 earned runs, and that's still a pretty good outing. This impressive run has helped the Jays rotation to be top in the league in quality starts. For those of you who don't know what that stat is, it is when a pitcher goes at least 6 innings of work, allowing 3 or less earned runs. And the Jays have had 15 of these outings from their starting pitchers in only 27 games, showing that the Jays rotation has been dominant for the majority of the season. But if we look at the numbers from the 5, they don't look too great. Gosman and Kikuchi are both doing well, except Manoah, Bassett, and Berríos are all in the high 4s for their ERA. But this is due to their early season troubles. In fact, if you take a look at their last few starts, then they align much alike their career numbers, with Manoah starting to find his groove a bit, Bassett throwing 4 straight quality starts, and Berríos looking like La Maquina once again. This rotation is one of the most expensive in baseball, and for the first time in a long time, Jays fans should be confident in each one of these starters taking the mound. And what makes this rotation even more exciting is how deep it is. We have Mitch White and Ryu who can both come back and take up some innings if need be, and 2 of the Jays' top prospects in Ricky Tiedemann and Yosfer Zulueta are developing nicely in the minor leagues. These guys could feature in the bullpen later this year, and speaking of the bullpen, the Jays have been middle of the pack there to start the season, currently 13th in the majors for ERA at 3.77. But they do have studs in Swanson, who has a 1.32 ERA, Meza with a 1.23, Romano, who is 8 for 9 in save opportunities, surprisingly Trevor Richards with a 2.89, and Zach Pop, who's been impressing so far this season, and has earned himself much more opportunities in high leverage situations. But a couple guys who the Jays were able to rely on heavily last season have not been effective so far. This being Anthony Bass and Jimmy Garcia, who both sport ERAs around 6.5. So it's safe to say that the Jays bullpen hasn't reached its best straight out of the gate, but that's the beauty of it. It just leaves even more room to grow throughout the rest of the season. And finally, I want to talk briefly about how the defensive improvements the Jays made in the offseason have already played a huge role early on. In 2022, the Jays defense ranked 8th in the MLB at 44 defensive runs saved. However, they had a glaring weakness in their outfield where they had -6 defensive runs saved across the entire season, and that put them in 21st place. But with the additions of Kevin Kiermaier and Dalton Varsho, the Jays outfield has skyrocketed to the best in the major leagues with 10 defensive runs saved. This has helped them improve as a team to 2nd best in the majors, only trailing the Milwaukee Brewers. With the upside of having the number 1 offense, top 5 rotation, a bullpen that is only getting better, and top defense, means that the sky is the limit for the 2023 Blue Jays. But we're still a long ways away from October baseball, so in the meantime we'll just have to sit back, relax, and watch the season unfold. And of course, I will be posting all season long, so you are surely going to want to subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers and we are closing in, so I'd just like to say thank you for all the support, and I'll see you all in the next video.